Well, it's an honor to be introduced by the incoming president of the New York State Society of Public Accountants. And J. Michael Kirkland has a rather rich history that brings him to a sort of trailblazing moment where he is going to be the chair of this board very soon. He comes to us from Deutsche Bank, but prior from Arthur Andersen and Bankers Trust and Chase. He's worked with all the top firms and with distinction in New York, in London, and if Fred Armisen from Saturday Night Live were here imitating me, he would also include in New Jersey. So he's a tough act to follow when he introduces you, and it was a very flattering introduction. But he made me think of a story, so I think I'll tell it to you now. There was a man traveling through the desert who got lost. He couldn't find his way out of the desert, and he was down to no water and no food. And he's literally crawling through the desert, and he sees someone going the other way. And he says to the person, can you please give me some water or some food? And the person said, I'm sorry, I don't have any water and food. I can't give you that. He said, but I do feel bad for you, so I could give you my jacket. He said, what do I need a jacket in the desert for? I don't need your jacket. And he said, well, I can't think of anything else. I could give you my tie. He said, like, what is a tie going to do about the fact that I'm out here starving? So he's crawling the desert. He just barely makes it out. And he sees someone and he says, I am absolutely starving. Could you give me some food or some water? And the person said, I don't have any food or water on me, but I'll give you $100. And about 2 blocks down, there's a restaurant. Go down there, they'll take care of you. He said, you're so generous, thank you. Goes down to the restaurant, starts to go through the door, and they said, I'm sorry, we can't allow you to come in. And he said, why not? He said, because a patron's here, you have to have a jacket and tie. So that's what I think Mr. Kirkland was talking about. Opportunity. There are opportunities that you might not really think have value, but they do. They just may not have a value that day or in the context of your experiences. Eventually, they may have a value. And I think all of you who are here today, by taking the opportunity to take this course, you may or may not go into the field of accounting, but somewhere, and I'm telling you this happens, it could be 10 years from now, it could be 20 years from now. Nobody thinks that far forward when they're young, but those days really do come where you're looking back on it. This is a tremendous experience. And the career opportunities in the accounting profession and the work that you've just achieved gives you now another option. We are in a recession where there aren't many jobs available, but there's always a way with a little creativity to find them. People have a tendency just to go to school in certain areas, and they almost become immune to anything that involves any science, any technology, any mathematical computation. And they shouldn't, because you see kids in school who have trouble multiplying, and they have trouble adding, and then you give them money and ask them to do something with it, and they can do it just like that. Because that's the difference between conduct and academia. When it becomes academic, people, for some reason, have this anxiety because, you go to school and it's perceived to be difficult. But yet in the real world, you practice some of the same skills and traits that are learned in the classroom every day. And so this is one of them. Now, one of the reasons that we had to regulate the accounting field, in addition to what Bernie Madoff did. He was, in a sense, the catalyst. There were so many issues that we had been trying to work out, what the ethics would be, what the responsibilities would be. When does the accountant have to speak out? And when does the accountant not have to speak out? So we were trying to do this for a long time, but the reason is because the profession is growing, and the profession is providing so much service that at some point there had to be further regulation of it. Now, this New York Society was founded in 1897, and it's the first society of accounting professionals that existed in this country. It is one that right here in New York State is still one of the largest in the country, and there are 28 chapters right here in New York State. Now, the board has 39 members, and there's 75 employees that work for the board. So in addition to the law, they helped us draft the law. Now, sometimes it was a little painful because there had to be some restrictions put in that certainly make business a little more difficult to do. But we're looking for an end product so that the exception does not bring the entire profession down. Because what was wrong about the Bernie Madoff case is that there was almost a perception that he was the norm when he was very unique, caused a lot of problems, created a lot of damage, but was an exception to the hardworking men and women who are professionals in this field, a field that you now have the option to consider. And I'll give you a further option to consider it that the rest of you probably won't. So that's the way that you don't have employment problems in a recession. When you can do something that a lot of other people don't choose to do, but is a needed service. And so it is an immense opportunity. And as this graduation ends, hopefully this will be an option that you'll consider as you continue to matriculate and continue to grow and develop as individuals. I can't be more thrilled that the society had the idea to bring people down here. Now, they know that not many people go into this profession. People are almost intimidated by it. And, but then when you get here and you work for a few days, it's like anything else. If you work hard enough and you are willing to study and to make mistakes and then correct them, it's, maybe not as difficult as you first thought. And as time goes on and you have successes like you've just achieved, then eventually you have a situation where you are now in a position where you've got an option that others don't. And in our society, the reason that we have such economic problems, the reasons are manifest, but it comes down to the same thing, the basic saw of life. You can't spend money that you don't have. As enticing as it is, credit cards now being given to people in high school, people in college, and there are full-grown adults that don't know how to manage credit cards. There are $950 billion in credit card debt in this country right now. So people complain about the government being in debt. The government is made up of people just like us who overspend. So when you get to spend other people's money, and that's what government does, spends taxpayers' money, there's no limit to the debt that we can have. One that put 48 of the 50 states, only North Dakota and Alaska did not have a debt over the last few years. I don't know what they were doing that was so fantastic, but they didn't have a debt. North Dakota probably because nobody lives there. So when you consider that the auto loan debt in this country is nearly $1 trillion, and then we come to another practice that I'd like all of you to be aware of. The student loan debt is now nearly $1.1 trillion. And one of the reasons that it's getting there is because college students are taking courses that will never give them the money in the job you can get when you get out of college to pay that debt off. So if you roll up a $80,000 debt going to college, or if you stay a few extra years and you start living off of the loan rather than using it for school, now you're sitting there with an $80,000 debt, but your degree is in a field that will only yield a $40,000 to $50,000 job. You're never going to pay it off. And this has sunk a lot of young people. I guess I can say it here. There's a member of my family who has $120,000 student debt, and he makes $35,000 a year. He might as well have never gone to college and worked and bought a house. He'd have been in better shape than he is now. But that's because people really don't think about how to manage money. And who better to teach you than an accountant? So I'm presenting you with an opportunity, now that you've learned a little bit about the field that you might not have considered before, that not only will you be able to enhance yourself and prospectively be in a lucrative career, you may be able to help other people stop making the mistakes they continue to make. And it is a problem that is worldwide. It isn't just here in the United States. Greece, Italy, Ireland, those countries are going into default. It means that they don't have the resources to pay for any debt, and they're not allowed to borrow any more money because no one's going to give them any more money because they know it's not going to get paid back. In a sense, they are bankrupt. And so when you think about career, this is an important issue to actually address. And by the way, I have been, for the 25 years I was in government and since, a great advocate of education. The United States became the first country to really start conferring degrees on high school students around the turn of the last century, around 1900. New York and Massachusetts were the first two states to require that wherever 500 families lived, there had to be a high school. If you had a neighborhood with 500 families, then the state had to put a high school there. That was in 1900. By 1960, 70% of Americans had high school diplomas. The next highest country was Great Britain with 9%. So if you want to know how the United States became the leaders in science, technology, in mathematics, how our space program got us to the moon, and the other countries have never come close, how we were able to in a sense, enhance and redistribute finance, and the other countries were stuck, how even after the Great Depression, our country survived through the economic advice that the presidents got faster than the other countries because we had the best educated society. And now we're losing that place in the world. We are losing the international battle educationally. And this is the type of profession that can help to restore our place in the global market. And but our country, along with so many others, just never thought that the credit card was going to run out. And it has. And you've seen worldwide calamity as a result of it. But don't be intimidated by the immense problems that the world has, because you as an individual can survive just by using your natural abilities and exploring all of the possible options that you may have. Because a couple of you are going to come out of here and really flourish because of the opportunities that you got here. And all of you are going to come out of here and presented with a different way of thinking, a different culture, and different options than anything you've ever seen before. The unfortunate problem in the world is that people too much live in what I call a bonded field. They only know what's going on in their backyard. And therefore, the way they think is limited. But the more you interact with other people, the more you learn why other people may feel the way they feel and react the way they do, although at first you might think it is impossible for you to imagine, the more you put yourself in a position where you can be an asset in societies. So I hope that you enjoyed the time here, and if in any way we can answer any questions or provide any service here, we'll certainly do that. What was that microphone for in the first place? Oh. I thought maybe that was the one that the FBI puts here when I come around. But
raise your hand if you have a question.
But thank you very much for inviting me.
All right, we got one question going.
I'm from Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis High School, but I'm with Pace University. And we were talking about how, back then in the 90s, there was about 70% of Americans who had their high school diploma or whatever. But now that number has gone down.
Can you phrase the question a little slower?
Okay. So basically my question is, where does the U.S. stand now as a superpower? Because earlier we were talking about how China was going to be number one, then Brazil. So where does the U.S. stand as of now?
That's a good question. I think that the United States is still a superpower. I think that China has intergovernmental problems because they are a communist country that practices capitalism. So that is automatic confusion. And although there are 1.5 billion people that live in China, only 80 million of them, about 5%, are members of the Communist Party. And so they still have a way that they want to compete in the international market, but when they don't like someone, then you don't see them anymore. And it is hurting them because the people of the country want to be part of the 21st century, and the leadership of the country wants to be in 1949 when Chairman Mao took over and China became communist. So they don't have as stable a government as we do. I think that we could be more of a superpower if we had done something different than what we did over the past few years. The greatest resource for money and cash right now is the United States Treasury. There were countries like South Korea, South Africa, Argentina, and the country you mentioned, Brazil, who have excellent credit ratings. Belgium has one. But they can't get any money because with the international banking crisis, they couldn't lend, nobody was lending any money. But the United States Treasury could have. And these were not risky loans. And if we had done that, the interest that would have accrued to the United States would have raised all the ships. We could have actually cleared up the international financial crisis ourselves by becoming the primary lender. But we, instead, continue to borrow money from China. Why are we doing that? And we can't blame this on President Obama because it was going on before he got here. But we can ask the question, why didn't anybody change it? So both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, are responsible for this, not using the options available. Crisis sometimes is actually an opportunity. You just have to change your thinking and not become overwhelmed by the anxiety that trouble is at your door. And I think as a country, we are still a superpower, but we could go back to where we were if we collectively made some moves like our predecessors did. After World War II, the United States did something that other countries didn't do. Borrowed a lot of money. But in this particular case, unlike the reckless borrowing, they used the money to rebuild the infrastructure of this country and the educational system and created a human product and then physical products that caused everyone to want to buy things from the United States. Right now, we actually could be on the other end and be the lenders, and it would accrue to our benefit.
Thank you very much, Governor. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for coming today. I am personally tremendously proud of all of you. Enjoy the rest of the day.